Awesome. Okay, during the break, I made a quick dashboard. This is one of the things that I'll be showing as we go through everything is you can create dashboards to visualize your data. Sorry to call you guys out, but these 10
I'll
folks
keep
got
working
perfect
on
scores. So good job. Average score was a 4.4. That's actually better than I expected because I don't know if I'd be able to just randomly identify Capitol buildings, but I put the answers down here. So this first one is Tallahassee, Florida. This second one is my home state, Boise, Idaho. I love this one. Third one, this is Austin, Texas. Looks like the majority of folks got that right. This one is Salt Lake City. That's where I currently live. It's in Utah. Majority got that one right. This one is Helena, Montana. If you look really close in the flowers, you can kind of see it almost says Montana right there. This one is Des Moines. So good job. Everybody got that one. And this last one is Honolulu, Hawaii. So this one's really interesting. I love the look of it. So that's a quick dashboard. And then Jessica, I'll have you take. So the Qualtrics platform, it's all about experience management. And what we aim to do with our platform is outlined in this framework: listen, understand, and act. So we'll talk about all three of these today. And as I share a tool, I'll kind of say, hey, this falls under the understand category or the act category. But first of all, we listen. So we're listening to our customers, or I do a lot of state government work, and so I like to say that we're listening to our constituents. And so that C and CX is really interchangeable. Constituent experience is what I like to call it. We're continuously listening, so we can do that whether it's through a survey or a form. There's other ways of listening. You get reviews on Google. We have things that can plug into that. And so we're listening. We're trying to understand how people view the state of Iowa, right? And generally speaking. The next piece is to understand that data. And so that's why we have those dashboards. I showed you one of that of the state capital quiz that we took. We're trying to understand that data, see where the majority of people are leaning, how people are feeling. We have Jessica mentioned text IQ, so we can analyze both quantitative and qualitative feedback that we're getting. And it's not just feedback. In government, we do a lot of forms, like Jessica said. And so we're trying to understand, how this data is coming in, where we're getting this data, and we have a plethora of tools to do that. And then lastly is the act phase. And that's going to be a lot of originally it was workflows. And so integrating with other platforms, APIs, closed loop ticketing, so that we're not just sending off an email and being done with it. We actually have a ticketing system so we can track whether we are actioning on some of the items that are being submitted to us. And then in the past couple of years, we've been really focused on some of our AI-driven functionality. And so it's really cool to see that this act is going to just continue to improve. We've moved into things like agentic AI, where we can help people right on the spot. If we identify that there's a problem, somebody's having a bad experience, then we can help them via AI. So when you first log into Qualtrics, you're going to be brought to the homepage right here, where you'll see some of your projects. When you first get in there, you won't have any projects, and some notifications. I almost always go straight to my projects page because this is where I store all of my items. And you'll see I have several different folders for different agencies that we have started to work with a little bit. But I put everything that I need for today in this folder into our demo folder so that I don't lose track of it. So here's that state capitals quiz that we built right here so I can access the survey builder. Jessica mentioned that we're going to show you two examples of forms that were existing, whether they were on Google Forms or just on a website or something like that. We wanted to rebuild them in Qualtrics and see how we could improve those forms. And so one of them was this Capitol building application form, which is great. It segues nicely into our state capitals quiz. So I'm going to open up this Capitol building application form. This is if somebody wants to reserve space in the Capitol building for some sort of an event. And so when I open this up, I'm in the survey builder right now, and I'll show you just a few things. Again, we're not going to dive too deep in the weeds on this one, but this is our survey builder. It's fairly intuitive in how you can build a survey. So you'll see the first thing that I have here is just a wall of text. This is a good survey methodology to include an introduction to your survey. Let people know, why they're taking this survey, what's going to happen. In this case, I would call this one more of a form rather than a survey. So what's going to happen with the data in this form, what they can expect, just kind of set the bar for what's happening in here. And then we go down to our next question. This is more of a demographic type question, but you can see that we're gathering their name, address, city, state, zip, email address, and phone number. And I continue down, I can add, different demographic type questions for different personas. So here's all this information that we're gathering. And then we start to get into things like this is really a multiple choice question. And the multiple choice questions are great, especially in surveys. I know this one's more of a form, but multiple choice are very easy to understand and to analyze data from multiple choice questions. And it gives you very clean, straightforward data. So that's a few of the questions. Let's go back up. I mentioned having clean, straightforward data. One thing that's important in Qualtrics is we want to begin with the end in mind. So as we're building this out, I might look at this and I might start to wonder, okay, what are some problems that I'm going to face if I want to look at all this data in aggregate? One thing that I can see already is this state issue. I might put Iowa in there. I might do IA in there. I might think Iowa and Idaho are the same state, which I don't know if you guys get that all the time, but people have said my entire life since I'm from Idaho, they think I'm from Iowa. So maybe people mix that up or something. And so we want a way to kind of validate this information. So you see this button right here, click to edit validation. I've done things like on the email address, I've added this validation so that if they don't put a valid email address in, they won't be able to move on to the next question. Qualtrics will stop them and say, can't move on. Same with this phone number. I've added some validation for phone number and for zip code. And then state, I did something different. Let's stick a pin in that for now. I'm going to come right back to that. Don't let me forget to tell you what I did with state because it's kind of cool. So I'm going to go back to our preview mode. So here's our question with all of our validation in it. I want to show you how to add a new question. Let's go, let's say this one right here, this on-site event contact. Let's say I want to ask a question in between this representative information and this on-site event contact that says, are you the on-site event contact? Because if so, I'm not going to ask them all these questions again because I've already gathered this information right here. And if there's anything we can do to reduce the number of questions that we're asking, we do it. We take the time to do that because it reduces what we call survey fatigue. If you've ever taken a survey that takes like 15 minutes to get through, you're just done. You're like, I just wanted to give my feedback. I was hoping to answer one question and now I'm telling them my entire life story. And we don't want that. So if there's anything we can do to reduce survey fatigue, we'll do it. So here's an example of how we would do that. I'm going to click this blue button to add a question. And I can just say something like, I'm not actually going to publish this. Is the representative also the on-site event contact? And you can reword that however you want. But again, fairly intuitive. That's what I want to show is that we just type in our question and then we type in our answers here. I'm going to say yes is one or no. And then over on the left, this is how we format our questions. So I'm going to reduce this down to to 2 choices, just yes and no. And you'll see that I have other things I can format how it's, whether it's a list, a drop down, if you've seen these drop downs before. These are nice if you have a lot of choices, and it does well with your mobile devices because it automatically formats it to that scrolling drop down option. And then you can also choose the alignment like horizontal, yes, no, This one, I probably would do it vertical. A lot of this, you're trying to, again, think about the user experience. We want this to look clean, and this is probably the cleanest look for me. Okay, so we added a question. I did multiple choice. I can change that question type that I just added by clicking this drop down. And here's all of our different options. I won't go through all of them, but some important ones are this text entry. We use that quite a bit. This is going to be your qualitative type questions. So any open text you'll put in there. Text graphic. This is what we used at the beginning of the survey. Let me close out of that and go up. This is a text graphic. It's not a question at all. We're not asking for any information. It's just so we can get a card in there that displays instructions or an image or something like that. Some other important ones are form field. Since we are doing a lot of forms, this one is important. This is an example of a form field up here where it's multiple text entry boxes all in one question. Just kind of condenses it, makes it a little cleaner. What else do we have in here? A calendar question. We'll see an example of that at the end. Slider question, a rank order. You can click and drag things and rank them. Net promoter score. What other ones? File upload. If somebody needs to upload a file along with their form, this is very common in government forms. Maybe they need to upload a picture of a driver's license or something like that. You can upload. Some other ones drill down. This is like think in cars, your year, make or your make, model. If I click on Tesla, I don't want to see my next drop down. I don't want to see a Corolla in my next drop down. I just want to see the Model S, Model X, right? So drill down helps you kind of narrow those choices down based on what their first selections are. This one's big, signature question. You can have people sign something. Again, this is very common with forms in government. Just make sure that this meets your legal requirements. Most of the time it does. People have been surprised that because we capture metadata along with the signature, like we can capture their email, we can capture the time they signed, and then we can lock that signature down, things like that, that this does meet most legal requirements, but not all legal requirements. We're not trying to be a DocuSign or something like that, but we do want to give, some resources to help out with as much as we can. We have CAPTCHA verification. So this is the I'm not a robot question. We recommend doing this if you're seeing a lot of bots in your survey. This can happen. We do a good job of preventing bots on normal surveys, but I do see that people tend to get more bots if they're offering some sort of incentive, like, hey, take this survey for a chance to win $100. They can get flooded with bots. And so adding a CAPTCHA verification question at the beginning of your survey or at the end of the survey is a great way to do that. But we also give them a score. It's a score between -1 and +1. I can't remember which one is which. I'm guessing -1 is more robot and +1 is more human. And so we can score those, and then you can identify which answers are likely bots and then just filter them out. Location selector, like on a map, that's same with ArcGIS. We can integrate with ArcGIS for maps or things like that. Those are kind of the main question types. If you have other questions about some of the ones that I didn't mention, you can actually just Google them. If you just Google Qualtrics, include Qualtrics in your search query, and then say Qualtrics matrix table. And then the first thing that will pop up, I guarantee it, will be our help page for the matrix table question. So you can play around with those, kind of think about which question is the best way to collect the piece of data that you're trying to collect, and then we format on the left. And these formatting options will change based on the type of question that I'm asking. So this is a multiple choice, so I can do allow multiple answers. Here's an example of a allow multiple answers down here, where we ask for which catering equipment might be needed for this event. If you see the squares, that means multiple select, so I can take more than one. I do see one thing that I actually want to edit right here real quick is we can actually edit individual choices. I'm going to say make this one exclusive. And it adds that little symbol there because I don't want somebody clicking on portable food warmers and neither. And actually, I'm going to change this to none. Probably makes more sense than neither. None. So if I click on this one, it will deselect any of these three. So this one's mutually exclusive, but these ones are not. So again, depending on the type of questioning, the question that we're asking, you'll see different formatting options, both on this left pane and in the question options themselves. I can do things like allow text entry, add validation. I can also format this question any way I want. That's what this rich content editor is. And so, I can choose my font, bold, italics. I can even go into the HTML and literally do anything I want with this question. So if your survey, we have all the tools you need to make your survey do what it needs to do, essentially, and look how it needs to look. It's just a matter of knowing how to use these formatting options that are more out of the box. And if you're looking for something very extreme that isn't quite out of the box, then you can at least do the HTML to accomplish what you need to do. All right, let's go back to our question right here. Is the representative also the on-site event contact? Qualtrics is really good at being able to provide a dynamic survey taking experience. And so that's what I want to display here is if somebody says yes to this, then there's no need to ask this question. We only want to show this question if somebody says no. And so we also have display logic. So I'm going to click on this display logic option. And this says display this question only if, and it was Q16 was our yes or no question. Is the representative also the event contact? Only if they select, oh, no. Only if no is selected. And you'll see this little banner at the top that says that there's display logic attached to this question. So I won't see this. All right. I won't pause for questions because I know there's a lot of people, but feel free to put your questions in the chat. We have Jade and Brooke who are happy to answer those questions as we go. And I'll just keep kind of chugging along. Okay, so what else do we have in here that I want to show? Here's some more event information. You can see that we have hyperlinks in here. And you can make those hyperlinks so that they're opening in a new tab. We don't want to be replacing the tab that they're in while they're taking the survey. We want to open a new tab so we don't interrupt that survey taking experience. Another multiple choice question, another multiple choice question, multiple select question. These are our text entry questions, web page with event information, event detail. Something you'll notice is that these are both text entry questions, but this one has a bigger box. We can change the size of the box again. That's just formatting options over here to indicate to our respondent how much of a response we want them to give. So again, it's just thinking about that user experience. As people are taking the survey, how do we want them to interact with our survey? How can we build this survey so that we get the cleanest data possible and that people very much understand what we're trying to ask? And then here's that calendar question that I mentioned earlier, where they can pick a start and end time to their event and a date. So that's kind of the survey builder. I went through it pretty quick. You'll see at the end that we have our end of survey message, which is further instructions on what we expect them to do and what they should expect from us. Kind of a turnaround time. That's always important to include in your survey, so you can do that here. So that's our survey builder. I'm going to show a few other options over here. One of these is our survey flow. In our survey builder, this is a form. It's a pretty basic survey. I only have one block of questions. And so the survey flow moves from top to bottom. And this is where I can really create a dynamic survey taking experience. And so I can do things like add a branch. Maybe I want to branch people out and they see a different block of questions based on a certain demographic that they're representing. Or maybe I wanted to couple their answers with some embedded data. And so I'll put this embedded data block in the branch and assign embedded data fields to that respondent. And these are pieces of data that they aren't actively giving to us, but we've kind of tagged them with that data. I can do a randomizer. I can do a web service or an API call, essentially mid-survey. I actually see this a lot in government where um, for example, I know Florida uses one of these where they put in their driver's license number at the beginning of the survey, and then we have a web service that goes into their driver license database and can pull other information mid-survey, and so that they can refer to that information on the second half of the survey. Kind of cool stuff. You can have an authenticator block, so if you only want certain people accessing your survey, we can do a table of contents. This is another important one when it comes to building forms. If you have a really long form and people are coming back to that form and they're filling it out, and you want people to have a little menu item, we call it a table of contents, on the left side of the survey or form, they can kind of click through those and click to different pages of questions. So there's a lot you can do in the survey flow. I'm going to remove all of these real quick. Don't actually want them because this one is pretty basic, just the one question block. And then you have your look and feel. This is where Jessica has done a great job, Jessica and team. A lot of people have put a lot of work into building out these themes so that your surveys look great. This is one of my favorite things about working with the state of Iowa is you guys really have an emphasis on making things look aesthetically pleasing. Jessica's told me that you were number 2 in the nation for the most beautiful website. And so I actually appreciate that a lot. I love it when I take a Qualtrics survey. I mean, I get Qualtrics surveys all the time if I'm flying a Delta flight or after I go to Home Depot or after I get my Chick-fil-A sandwich. I will get Qualtrics surveys and I like to take them and I always judge them on how beautiful they are. Some of them are kind of bad. If you've ever gotten an Airbnb survey, they don't do a good job with their theming on their surveys, but their website looks great, but not their survey. So Jessica's done a great job of making these themes, and you'll recognize some of these: Okoboji afternoons, Manawa mornings. We'll have further instructions on how you're supposed to use these themes, but they have all the color palettes already assigned to them and all of the fonts that you'll need. And so you shouldn't have to do much here. This is all kind of taken care of for you. Let's go into the survey options. Jessica, is there anything you wanted to add on theming before I move on? I think we'll talk about it more later, but...
Not at this time, no.
Okay, awesome. All right, some of our survey options. These are things that you don't think about all the time when you're building the survey because you're just excited to get all your questions in there and launch it and start asking away. But we do have to keep in mind things like, let's go to, what do we do with incomplete responses? Do we want to record those? We got to think about the people who don't actually finish the survey. Do we want to record those or do we want to just delete them? And then do we want it to just automatically close out if they're taking too long? Do we want to leave this open or do we want it to have an expiration date? These are all things that we don't quite think about, but they're important, and Qualtrics needs to know how to handle those situations, and so you tell it. We have security. This is, I mentioned, like our bot detection, security scans, things like that. If you want to add a referral URL, so you make sure that people are only entering your form or survey from a specific URL and not from somewhere else. Post-survey, I'm just going to ignore this completely because we've completely revamped this into workflows, so I won't talk about that. But we can do scoring as well. That's what we did with the Capitol Building quiz. We had scoring attached to that survey. Congrats to those who scored 7 out of 7. So I just assign a score to the correct answers. So you can use this for quizzes too. It's kind of cool. All right, we can also do quotas. So if I need to build a quota, I don't have quotas for this one. This one's open to everybody. That's typically how government forms go. This is probably not something you'll be using a ton if you're doing exclusively government forms. But you can set quotas. I have used them, but not that common. I can say, okay, I only want 100 of this certain demographic to answer, And then if I get another one of that demographic, I want to just kick them out of the survey. I don't need their response. Or there's a lot you can do with it just to make your survey more dynamic. And then lastly on this page is the translations. This is one thing that I really love. The functionality of this in Qualtrics is you can very easily translate your survey. We do have a Google Translate service that just uses Google Translate to, this will show any sort of language, any sort of text in your survey. So every single question, if there's an end of survey message, the responses to your questions, text can live in a lot of different places when it comes to surveys. And so this organizes it so you can see every single piece of text and you know you're not missing anything. And then we can do a Google Translate. Most governments opt to have an in-person translator, not use Google Translate. It just makes for a more accurate translation. And I believe that's the way.
Yeah, I just want to say that out loud. You need to always refer to your agency rules, but any intake that we get that's a different language for the state should be reviewed by an interpreter. But this could help expedite and reduce cost by doing the translation and then giving them a chance to edit what you currently have through the. Does that make sense? I think it does. Like, just make sure that anything that we're receiving from a constituent that you have an interpreter actually review it. But this is a tool that will help reduce the cost of the interpreter, hopefully. Yes.
Awesome.
Sorry, thank you. Yep.
Yeah, this definitely reduces the cost because it makes certain that you're not missing anything. It puts anything that's text in this. Sorry, this isn't a good example because I haven't added any translations here, but it puts everything right in front of you, so you know you're not missing anything. Okay, that's translations. It's a great service. Let's hop into how we distribute this survey.
Hunter, can I interrupt you one more time? I do have a good question as a follow-up. Could you go back to the drop-down? Do you want to talk about that? Because someone asked to go back to talk about the Iowa drop-down.
The Iowa drop-down.
In the form field.
Oh, the states.
Yeah, sorry, states. Yep.
Yes. Okay. Thank you for reminding me. I knew I would forget.
Yeah, it wasn't
That's
me.
why I told you to remind me.
Yep, thanks.
Okay, so down here we have question behavior. I talked about display logic. Skip logic is essentially the inverse of that in a way, where instead of putting this on the question that may or may not appear, we put this on the question that is going to appear and we tell it where to go after that. I don't actually use skip logic all that much. Usually I tend to use display logic. Some other ones are carry forward. This is, let's say, I ask a question, which colors do you like? Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, purple. And then I click on red, orange, yellow, and then I want to carry forward my selected choices of red, orange, yellow, and then say, okay, of red, orange, yellow, which is your favorite? And so it just makes for, again, a more dynamic survey taking experience. Randomizing, I can randomize these questions, right? I don't need to do that. I don't use randomization hardly ever, to be honest. Default choices. This is if I want to pre-populate this box with something, I can use default choices. Same with multiple choice. If I want to have something selected already, throw in a little bias into my survey and have something selected that I already want them to click on, I can do that with default choices. That was a joke. Don't put bias in your surveys. And then lastly, we have JavaScript. And so JavaScript is kind of our catch-all. JavaScript helps us make the question behave exactly how we want it to. And so one thing that I ran into with this form field is you'll notice that nowhere in here did I see a drop-down option. They're all text box, but I want this one to be a drop-down. I also had another one. I want these numbers. When I put in these numbers, I can put letters in this box, right? There's no situation where I would want letters in here. I want exactly 10 digits, like I'm telling people right here. So I want to force people to put in the type of data that I want. And so that's where we use JavaScript. So don't freak out. This is a big wall of code. We have a few JavaScript options that are kind of things that are used quite commonly, like a state dropdown and a phone number dropdown. These aren't built by Qualtrics. These are built by internal Iowa. You guys have some implementation partners that help build out the JavaScript for these. If you Qualtrics support won't be able to support on custom code, but we can kind of help tell you where to put it and things like that. And so this is JavaScript, and it just tells Qualtrics, I want a drop down, and I want these options in my drop down, and I want the default choice to be Iowa because it's very likely that people will be selecting Iowa, and I just want to make it easy on people and have that be the default choice. And then I have some more JavaScript down here that's telling me how I want the phone number formatted. And it's targeted at this 7 right here. I'm not a big code guy, but the 7 right here is pointing to the 7th text entry box in this question. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. It's pointing to this box. And then everything with my state was pointing to that box. So I have JavaScript for box number 4 and box number 7. I'm going to click on this button right here, and you'll see that I can preview just the question without previewing the entire survey. And then I can test this, and you'll see Iowa appears right there. That was my default choice. That's what I wanted. And when I click this drop down, Iowa's at the top, even though it's not Alabama, it's not in the A's. But Iowa's still at the top, and then I can see all of my choices, additional choices down here if I need to change it. And then phone number right here. Right now on my keyboard, if you can hear it, I'm typing letters and nothing's happening. It's not allowing me to type letters at all. It only allows me to type numbers. And once I get to 10 digits, it stops me, and you'll see that it added those dashes automatically. I just wanted my JavaScript to make that very clean, and I wanted my JavaScript to have a drop down. And, something like having Iowa as my default choice, unfortunately, as much as we love Iowa, having Iowa become the default choice isn't an out-of-the-box solution that we have. And so that's where JavaScript can become very helpful. Same with phone numbers. It's not an out-of-the-box choice to just force it into that. I can make it so that if I click next, it won't let me continue. But I kind of like it to just force in the numbers right as they're typing in real time. And so I like that piece of JavaScript. So if you have questions about JavaScript as you're making your survey, if you know JavaScript, great, good for you. There are a lot of community forums. You can Google, hey, I need JavaScript to make my question do blank. And you will probably find an answer. There's a lot of people using Qualtrics who have probably done the same thing. I've done that plenty of times where I just Google it and then I paste it into my survey. But if you do know JavaScript, you can do it on your own, or you can ask as you're doing it, just say, hey, I need a piece of JavaScript that does the drop down, and that's just a little too much for me. We'll be able to help as you get your survey approved. Okay, hopefully that answered that question. Thank you for reminding me. Let's hop into distributions real quick. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to take out, because I just added this question as an example, so I'm going to delete this question. And you'll see this is going to get mad at me. Invalid logic. Yeah, we know. We took out the question that was telling you what to do. All right, so now we're good. When I go hit publish on this, it's going to give me an expert review. And Jessica talked about this earlier. So let me click on view recommendations. And this will tell me what issues I have with my survey, essentially. So my number one issue is the number of text entry boxes. I had a lot of text entry boxes on here. That's okay. Remember that Qualtrics is an experience management primarily built for surveying people, asking them about their experience. And then we've used Qualtrics to just be a government forms product as well. And so sometimes you can't get around some of these. We just have to ask those questions because this is more of a form, not a survey. So we're okay with that. Questions may be difficult to read. I have some lengthy questions in there. So it's just saying, hey, we recommend you simplify those. That's something maybe I could take a look at. But again, sometimes in government, we have mandated words that we have to use. And so we might just have to roll with some of these. And then it gives me a few suggestions like, hey, you can turn on bot detection for this. I think I'm fine on this government survey. I'm not too worried about bots, but I could turn it on. And then it says, looks like our display logic is working correctly. Our survey is formatted how it needs to be formatted. So I get a pass on a lot of these down here. So that will help you. When I publish, I will need to select my approver. This is always going to be Jessica for now. We'll talk about the approval process a little later. So going to come back to this, but I'm going to hit request approval. And this is going to go to Jessica, which starts off a ticketing process. Let's put a pin in that one. We're going to come back to the approval process and what it kind of looks like. Like Jessica said, it's an evergreen process, so just bear with us on that one. But let's hop over to distributions real quick and talk about how we're going to get this survey out there, because this is part of the listening exercise. We've built our survey. We want to get it out there. We can do it via anonymous link. A QR code and an anonymous link are kind of the same thing. We can add query strings to the end of an anonymous link. Let's say I have a link that's living in the 200 grand building and then a link that lives in the Capitol building. I can append to the end of it a query string that tells me which link, even though they're both going into the same survey, I can tell kind of where people came from. And it's like asking a question without asking a question. Just by nature of which link they scanned on their phone, we know where they're coming from. And so that can be done with anonymous link or QR code. We can distribute via email. If you want to distribute via the Qualtrics platform and have your survey go out via an email, you can do that. Or if you have a different platform that you want to distribute, like a MailChimp or something like that, we can generate personal links so that you can still mail those out. It basically creates an Excel sheet. The nice thing about email and personal links is they are not anonymous. We know who they are. So if I have a contact list and it's Hunter Markus and my email and then my link, so that link, when it comes to me, I know that it's personalized to me. So when I open it, Qualtrics knows that it's me taking the survey. So just a more efficient way of collecting metadata. So let's see, I'm going to go ahead and go anonymous link. And if I'm going to copy this survey link, okay. So I'm going to hop over to data and analysis. This is where we start to transition into the understand world of how we understand our data. So I've already put a few in here, a few test responses. I have like 5 where I've taken the survey a few times, and I can see all of my raw data. I can filter this data. I can export this data. I have tools where I can kind of manage the data a little bit better. I can create new fields based on data that people have given us and things like that. So this is where we really start to understand it. Again, this is raw data, so it's not very helpful, but we do need somewhere where we just have all the raw data. You can export this to Excel. I'm a big Excel guy, so I like to do things in there and work with my data. One thing that we do to help you understand the data, I won't dive into this a ton, is our text IQ, text analysis. So for all of my open text questions, I don't know if this one is a great example for it because I'm not asking people about their experience. I'm asking things like, what's the name of your event? And so text IQ wouldn't be great here. Text IQ works really good when you have thousands and thousands of answers that you don't want to read through, but you do want to identify kind of what the sentiment is. And so we have machine learning that will identify the sentiment and assign a score to each question or each respondent. -2 being they're very unhappy, and +2 being they're very favorable towards whatever you're asking them. So we give them a sentiment. We also assign them an actionability score. Actionability would be if I'm giving you a suggestion about something you can improve, or if I'm saying something like, this process is garbage, I hate it, that would get a low actionability score because there's nothing I can do with that. They're not giving me great feedback. Or alternatively, if I'm saying, this is great, I loved everything about it, that's going to get a low actionability score because there's not much I can do with that. So if it identifies feedback in there, it'll give it a higher score. And then lastly, it'll separate it by topic. I can see if people are talking a lot about, we do this in employee in the employee engagement. If we can see whether people are talking a lot about employee benefits, or maybe they're talking about leadership a lot, we can identify which topics and whether they're favorable or unfavorable, the sentiment in there. So that's how we really start to understand our data. Text IQ is for qualitative analysis, and Stats IQ is for quantitative analysis. This just lets you run regressions using your more quantitative variables in your survey. So that's our data and analysis. If I refresh this, I'm hoping this will go up to, hopefully by now we have a few more. Okay, we have like 26 responses in there. So we have a few more in there that we can work with. And so let's go take a look at the dashboard for this. So I built a dashboard for this previously. I'm going to go to my results here. I showed you one of these. I think the one that I built for the capital quiz is maybe a little bit better and demonstrates more of the widgets that we can build on here. But a couple of widgets that I built, I don't have a ton of data to work with since it's a form. I'm maybe not, my primary objective maybe isn't to display this data in a beautiful way. My primary objective with a form is to just collect all the data and put it somewhere so that I can act on it. But for the sake of the demo, I wanted to show some sort of a dashboard. And as I keep refreshing this will probably go up because people are submitting their surveys. So I have 28 responses in here real quick. I built a bar chart, thought that might be helpful, of the most commonly requested rooms. So it looks like the first floor, Rotunda East, is a hot place to be. I also built a events in the next 60 days. So I can see most people are selecting the next couple of days for their event. So we're going to have to kick people out of the Rotunda to make way for all these events that are going on. And then I can add new widgets. So I'll just hit this edit button. And let's say I want to see a widget for, let's do horizontal bars. And let's say I want to do a widget for the number of states where people are saying they're from. I'm guessing a lot of people are going to do Iowa because that was my default choice. This works a lot like Tableau or Power BI. If you've ever built dashboards using that, you have a y-axis, you have metrics, you have data series, things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and click on state here. And my metric is going to be a count. I have Iowa and New Jersey. So good. I don't know who chose New Jersey, but good for you. We have some diversity in our data here. So we have Iowa and New Jersey. And then I can do other things like, hey, I want to show my data numbers right here. So there's a 1 and a 23 up there. Or I want a tooltip when I hover over it. I can change the colors over here. I can change the order that they're in, things like that. So there's a lot you can do. I can filter out things. If I don't want to look at certain pieces of data, I can filter it out, add comparisons. There's a lot we can do with dashboards. I'm not going to jump into them a ton on how to actually build them. That will be more for training, but just showing the art of the possible here. If you think of a certain visualization that you want, this is where you come to do it, is in our dashboards. Here's all of our options. Again, you can just Google these and add Qualtrics to your Google search and it will show you what they're doing. But this is how we start to visualize and understand our data a little bit more. And we go beyond just visualizing it because we have things like key driver analysis. We use this a lot in employee engagement where we have an outcome question, which is kind of an overall type question. Like, overall, do you like working for the state of Iowa? Strongly agree, strongly disagree, right? But then before we ask that overall question, we ask a lot of like input type questions, like, do you like your manager? Do you like your workspace? Do you like your benefits? We ask all these kind of more specific questions, and then we finish with a big general question. And so our key driver analysis tells us which of those inputs has the most impact on our overall satisfaction with working with the state of Iowa. So not only can we see where we're performing well or not performing well, we can see which ones are important to people, how well they align with the overall metric. And so that helps Sarah know where to prioritize her efforts. So it's kind of cool what we do with KeyDriver. And then we can add our text IQ type widgets in here so we can see our text analysis. A lot we can do here. And I'll just keep chugging along. I usually pause and say any questions, but with so many people, we're just having them in the chat. I think that might be everything I want to share with dashboards right now. Let's hop into kind of our last little section, which is ACT. So I'm going to go back to our survey. Okay, so our ACT, a lot of that is done in workflows. I'm going to open up this tab right here. I have one workflow. This is just a copy. You can ignore it. I have one workflow in here. So this is just an automation that happens after we've taken the survey. So I'm going to open this one up here. Our workflows can be triggered by several different things. Let me show you an example on a new workflow. I can do start when an event is received or start at a specific time. So maybe I want a survey every week. I want to distribute a survey or something like that. I can do start at a specific time. This is typically our most commonly used one, start when an event is received. And typically we're just doing a survey response. So when I get a survey response, do something, right? But then there's all these other ones as well. We integrate with ServiceNow. You can use JSON if you have a different software that needs to push information into Qualtrics in order to trigger some sort of a workflow. But this is going to be where we're living 99% of the time is a survey response. So let's go back to this workflow that I've already built. So when I get a survey response, I can add in here a decision. So I can say, okay, if they selected, a date within the next week, then I want to send them an email that says, hey, you're going too fast for us. We're not ready for you, right? I can add an email that sends that to them. In this case, I don't have any sort of decision. Everybody who fills out the survey goes down this line. So right now, two things are happening. One is a ticket is created. So I'm going to go in here and we'll talk about tickets after I get through workflows. But this ticket is created where it goes into our ticketing software. It gets assigned to this account. So this trainer or demo account that we have receives the ticket, and that person is in charge of actioning the ticket. Not only do they get an email, I know we have a lot of forms across the state right now where once they fill it out, somebody just gets an email and that's the end of it. But now they have a ticketing system where they can actually manage it and track all the communications between that. And then they can select the status like open, in progress, or closed. And once they're done actioning on it, they can close it. And then we still have a record of everything that happened. And so I tell Qualtrics what I want to be included in that ticket, in the ticket data. So event name, things like that. And then you'll see over here that I can ask follow-up details. So I can ask a question, did you schedule this event? So this is going to the agent who's taken the ticket. And I want a multiple choice, not a text entry. Did you schedule this event? And I can say yes or no. So it's a survey within the ticket. We love surveys at Qualtrics, and so we're asking, we have more surveys. Additionally, this is kind of a basic, really dumbed down survey. We have either a multiple choice or a text entry, or if you have a more robust survey that you're asking, you can use a Qualtrics survey, and then I can go select which survey I want to do, or I can create a new survey, and then it'll give me the survey builder platform where I can ask all the different types of questions, a rank order question, a signature question. This is huge for government because if I start off a process, I might need to have some follow-up questions. If somebody's filling out some sort of a complaint form, I might need to be asking follow-up questions about it. I might need to be gathering signatures. There's a lot I can do with this follow-up question. So I know it's just a tiny section of this ticket task, but it is a very powerful thing. I'm just going to have nothing for this one because it's just a government form. Um, and I can allow my user to see the full record um, and different options down here. So I'm going to save that. We'll go back to ticketing so you can see what it looks like, but let me show you the next action in this workflow. This is an email, and I've used piped text. Piped text is essentially dynamic text. I didn't talk a lot about this when I went through the survey building, but we have piped text all over Qualtrics. Because we want a dynamic survey taking experience, we want things to change based on what people put. And so this is piping in the email that you provided in that first question. And so my two, whoever is filling it out, gets populated here. I put my from, my subject, and you'll see here's more pipe text. If any of you got an email about this, you saw Capitol Building application, and then it gave you a number for your ticket. Same thing down here. I piped in your name. So if you open the email, you should see your name there. Hopefully it did it correctly. And then this will be the name of your event, should have populated there. The date of your event should have populated there. And then again, your application number, which is the same thing that you saw in the subject line right here. And so everybody who took this survey who put in a valid email, you should have gotten an email. And that was the second task that happened. But unbeknownst to you, before you got the email, we created a ticket. And so I can go in and action on all of that. So if I want to build another one, I can build another email. And let's say this one, there's a lot of tasks that we can do in Qualtrics. I mean, just scrolling through these, kind of take a gander at everything you can do. You can set up events in Google Calendars. You can extract data. You can have Salesforce connections. You can have Freshdesk connections. You can add a line to Google. This is one of my favorite ones because I love Excel and Google Sheets. You can add a line to a Google Sheet. You can connect to HubSpot. There's a lot you can do. Microsoft Dynamics is in there. Here's the ticketing one that I used. ArcGIS is in there. And then for anything that you're not seeing in here, we have web service. And so you can make an external request to an API. So this is going out, touching another software, and performing a task that you need it to perform. And so what we're trying to do here is automate things, make our government more efficient by automating some of these tasks if we can do it. And it's a lot of setup, right? But once we automate it, a couple thousand people take this survey, you've saved a couple thousand hours. And so these tasks are very powerful. So I showed you the email one, so I won't build another one, but I could build another one that is an email that maybe goes to Jessica that says, hey, somebody filled out this survey, just to notify her. Okay, that is workflows. I want to talk a little bit more about ticketing because that's probably our biggest act category. I have kind of two examples. One was I had a ticket created for everybody who filled out that survey just now. And so I'm going to go into that dashboard. We have two types of dashboards. We have a ticketing dashboard or a results dashboard. So now I'm going to show this ticketing dashboard. So we have a lot. Here's all of our options right here. Here's all of the tickets that were created. I can choose which headers are right here, and I can name them however I want. So I'm going to put the most relevant information up front. And then I can click on one of these and I can see more information about that one, about that ticket. I had an issue kind of connecting the ticket workflows when I was doing this week. And so I had another one that I kind of built out just because I wanted to show you the ticketing. This is another example whenever we have a purchase requisition. This is a survey idea that hasn't been launched yet, but Jessica built out the survey for it, and I built out the ticketing system for it. So we're going to go into this one. And again, this is all example data right here. So I get to choose which pieces of data are shown in the header right here. And so this, you know, Qualtrics is our vendor. We're asking for $6. It's very cheap for Qualtrics. Good job. Just kidding. and I can click on this one and I can see the full record, and then I can see the ticket associated with it. So this was the 10th ticket that was ever made in the platform. This is something we designed early on. Shows me all the data. Here's the email of the requester, priority, the vendor name, the amount. I can choose again what data is displayed here. This comes to me, but I can reassign this. If I want to reassign this to Jessica, I can go in here and say, oh, Jessica's in charge of this one. It shouldn't have come to me. I can reassign it to her. I can change the status of it. So right now this one's in progress. I can close it. I can add other custom statuses as well to this ticket. And then here's the cool stuff. I can make a comment, sent this to Herb for approval. So say I showed this to Herb or something like that. I can do that. This came from somebody who filled out a form. So another thing I can do up here is send an email. So when I go over here to email, it will automatically populate the to address. I know this is in my email and it's me sending it, so it's kind of confusing, but it was me who filled out the form. I guess I could go and find one. I don't know if Jessica, I think Jessica did one right here. Jessica made one, a test one. But I can go email and you'll see it'll populate with Jessica's email because she's the person in question, the person I want to talk to. Go ahead and buy it. So I can send her my response. I can change this to approved, my subject or whatever it is. And then I'll send that email. So Jessica just got an email. And it had it was associated with this ticket. So now when I go back to the ticket, I go to my activity down here and I've tracked that email. Meeting with Jessica 8:28 at 9 a.m. to discuss. And then I can add notes. So let's say in the email I told Jessica that we're going to meet. I can add notes to this ticket. So now I'm really tracking the process, not just the emails associated with it, but comments. And then if I were to reassign this to Jessica, it would also add that to the activity that was reassigned. If I change the status, let's see, in progress, it'll add that to the activity. So everything I'm doing is tracked in the ticket. It's very helpful. It's great for making sure that things don't fall through the cracks. It really helps us serve our constituents better by being able to track all of this. Another thing that we can do here is they may have uploaded a file, like a purchase requisition file or a quote. So if I go in here, this will open up the quote, right, that was submitted. I can open up this file. So that's that file upload question that we had in the survey. That's all right here in the ticket. So I can action it quite easily. And with dashboards, I can filter things out. Let's say I can add a filter here that says, hey, don't show me the closed ones because I don't want to see those on my screen anymore. Once they're closed, I want them to go away. I can also do role-based access on this dashboard. So if I have 10 different people who are servicing tickets, I can create one singular dashboard, but when I share it out, I can say only share the data that's relevant to that person. Only share the tickets that are assigned to them or assigned to their department. So role-based access is huge, especially in government. It helps us silo data, make sure that all of your data is protected. And that the right people have the right eyes on that data. So really cool things that we're doing with ticketing and dashboards. Jessica, unless there's anything else you want me to touch on ticketing, let me know. If not, I'll turn it over to you to kind of introduce the approval process.
Yeah, thank you. I think you definitely demoed the art of possible. Again, thank you. You can see the whole listen, understand, and act. So thank you for doing that. Just a little housekeeping. We're working on the questions. If we haven't got a response, we've got a spreadsheet and we'll follow back up on you or try to address them at the end. The next thing that he's going to go over, I do want you to have an open mind, open heart on this. I do want to emphasize branding and accessibility as really important things for both iGov and then the federal level. Now, as we've said, it is 2.1 accessible at the new experience. However, we are still human. People might forget to do the alt text. They might forget to they might have changed the formatting. It might not be very appealing, or maybe they did change something that doesn't fit the branding or good plain language. Those are things that you will learn, right? Like there's things that some of you already are really heavily doing that already in other platforms. So I just wanted to let you know like the why. And then the approval process, the sense of the word approve is the sense of we're not the data owners. And so we want to make sure that the agency owner, the designated approver, is aware of this particular platform. Now, when he does demonstrate this review process and approval process, I am not saying in any shape or form that if agency A, agency B, agency C, I don't know your guys' internal process. So if you have an internal IT intake, please follow that. This is not a replacement of that at this time. So if agency A has a normal internal intake process, please follow that. There's things that need to be addressed internally before you build something in Qualtrics. And again, I don't know every agency's internal process, but I just want to be very clear. This is not taking place of that. This is just one to make sure that you have a really good form before you hit publish. And then also just to make sure that agencies have awareness of this form, because we have to think of all things. And the other thing I want you to hear my heart, I know a lot of you don't know me personally, but if you do, you know this comes from my heart, is that we're not trying to slow things down. Absolutely do not want to do that. Like that is not on my heart at all. So I just want to let you know, like, this is just to improve and make sure that we've got all our checks and balances done. So, and last thing I want to say is this is very evergreen. And so just be aware, like this is still a work in progress, but it is the overall goal is this, and this has been discussed numerous times with the Center of Excellence team to make sure that we are all checking all our T's and I's and all that stuff. So just to set the stage and just to hear from my heart where we're at with this. And I know this is going to be a little bit of an adjustment, but I think overall it will produce great surveys and forms for the state. So with that, Hunter is going to just walk through the overall concept of what's going to take place. So Hunter, you're back at it again.
Back to the Capitol building application form. You guys saw when I hit publish, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to make a change. I'm going to add a space there. When I hit publish, here's that expert review. I had to select an approver. When it says approver, typically this just goes to somebody at Qualtrics. They look at it, they hit approve. You guys are doing something that is kind of novel to Qualtrics, and we're really excited about it. Our leadership's excited about it as well, where we're actually kicking off an approval process, a formal approval process. We're excited about this because it's going to ensure, like Jessica said, that your surveys are accessible, that your surveys look good. And this is something that some states struggle with, where people just send off a survey and their leadership doesn't know about it. And so this is a great way to really make the most out of Qualtrics. And so you'll be selecting Jessica. Jessica will be the only option here, even though Jessica is not the only approver looking at this. More than anything, it's going to be your agency leader who has to sign off on this. And so this is just to kick off the process, right? So I'll hit request approval on that. Since I already did it earlier, I'm not going to do it again, since all I did was add a space. But that will send an email. So first, what it's going to do is it'll send a ticket to Jessica. So we already talked about the ticketing process. You already have an idea of what that looks like. Sends a ticket to Jessica along with anybody who's involved in the approval process. So somebody who might be looking at methodology, looking at things like, do you have double-barreled questions? Do you have too many questions? Are you asking confusing questions? Things like that. That's all methodology. You'll have somebody looking at the accessibility of it. Like Jessica said, do you have alt text for your images? Is your survey accessible? Is it mobile friendly? Are people going to be able to take this survey with screen readers? Things like that. And then we have our data security. And so data security will be things like, are you collecting any sort of sensitive data? If so, do we have the right things in place so that by default, we redact a lot of sensitive data. So if Qualtrics identifies a social security number, it'll redact it, and that data is no longer usable. That piece of data, that social security number, it'll just be replaced with X's. So if you're trying to collect a social security number and it's something that you need, then we need to make adjustments and exceptions for your survey. That's just one example. There might be other things that we might need to unredact. So we'll look at data privacy, make sure that we're checking the right boxes. We're also going to look at survey ownership. When you build a survey, you own the survey. But a lot of times you're going to be building things that are more programmatic, things that might outlive your employment. So if you win the lottery, we might still need to have that survey out there launched for constituents. If it's just a one-time survey, then it might not be programmatic and it can probably still live in your account. But if it is programmatic, we want that to live in a service account for your agency. So your agency can continue to access that survey. Once it does live in a service account, that doesn't mean that you will no longer have access to it. That review committee will determine who should have access to it and what level of access. So maybe you just have access to the survey building, but not any of the data. Or maybe it's vice versa. Maybe you have access to the data, but not the survey builder. And so we have a lot of levers that we can pull, and this approver team, this review team will take care of that. But most important is going to be your agency approval. Because again, it's your agency that's going to own the data ultimately. They should be doing what they want with the data, and we need the green light from them. So that's what's happening when you hit approve. It's creating a ticket with Jessica and that approver team and your agency representative to all look at your survey. It will send them a preview link. So this is a preview link. When I preview the survey, you can see it gives me a mobile version over here. Again, this is so we can make sure that we're being accessible and that it looks like it's supposed to look on a phone, because most surveys are taken on phones these days. We don't realize it because we're building it on a computer typically. But essentially I can share this preview link. I can say, okay, only people with a Qualtrics account can see this, or I can make this public. This isn't sharing any data. This is just sharing the actual survey questions. So it's not, that's what it's sharing, not your collected data. But it will share this brand internal link with Jessica and the review team so that they can look at your survey, make sure that it looks good. So that's what the preview link is. The second thing that happens after creating a ticket while they're working on that, trying to get it approved, is it will send you an email. So I'm going to go to my email over here. And when I hit request to publish a survey, I got this email from Jessica. Hi, Hunter. Look, it piped in my name. That's pipe text in action. To have the project listed below reviewed and approved, please complete the survey provided. And we have another survey. We're at Qualtrics, so we love surveys. Has the name of my survey piped in that. Gives me the preview link that I just showed you. Gives me the survey ID. Every survey has a specific ID, and it can actually be found in the URL. It's this SV_ thing. And so that we know what survey we're talking about. We can identify that survey based on the ID. Just gives me some information, everything that we've explained to you. And then I'm going to go into this approval survey, and we're building this, so bear with me. But it's going to ask me some very important questions. So first of all, a launch date. When do I want to have this launched? If I'm saying tomorrow, that's probably not good. Usually we want to get these things approved with plenty of time so that the review team can take a look at it and you can get your survey launched. So I'll collect my my launch date. There's a calendar question for you. Did you receive approval from your agency leaders prior to submitting this project? You should hopefully be clicking on yes. And so who approved this project? Governor Reynolds. How is the project approved? She said I could. Obviously, you're going to be putting more robust information in here. That's probably not going to pass, but for the sake of the demo, I'll say next. Which platform features are necessary for your project? The review team wants to know this so that we know where to look. So I am doing a survey, so I'll definitely select survey building. I don't need to import or export data, but I do need a change to the look and feel because I want a different logo on there to match my agency a little bit better. And so maybe I'm going to click on that. I do have translations, so I want them to take a look at that. I didn't use library materials. Um, let's say I do want to use TextIQ. I do want a dashboard um, and other things. And let's say I skipped ticketing and workflows. So I'm doing my listen and my understand because I have a dashboard, but I don't have any ticketing. So when I hit next, I get this message. I haven't selected ticketing or any sort of closed loop system. So I'm not doing any action with my form. That might be okay in some cases, but for the majority of cases, we do want some sort of closed loop system so that we can ensure that we're serving our constituents in the best way possible. We want some sort of action that's happening because of this. Otherwise, it's just a form that's going into cyberspace and nothing happens with it. There are cases where maybe that's appropriate, but in this case, I'm going to say, oh, I haven't selected ticketing. Okay, let me go back and I'll go select ticketing. I do need a ticketing process with this. So I'll hit next. Enter the email addresses of all individuals who should be members of the ticketing team. So I'm going to add myself here. And then I'm going to add Brooke here. I won't add Jade. Jade doesn't have to deal with tickets, but I could add any emails I want here. And then provide any additionals regarding the ticket system request. Oops, I haven't built it yet. Even though I actually did for this survey. I'll need help with that. And then the requester team might say, well, take a stab at it and then we'll approve it because it's just a workflow and you'll have training on that. So by the time you're filling this out, you will know how to build a ticketing system. I'll hit next. Okay, how will the form be distributed? We talked about query strings a little bit, but I have a link in there. So if you want to learn more about query strings, you can click on that and it'll open up the help page on there. Anonymous link, email distribution inside Qualtrics or outside of Qualtrics. Let's say I do an anonymous link with query strings. Do you plan to publish this anonymous link on the State of Iowa website? This is going to be very common. There's a lot of government forms that are on the website. If I click yes, we'll just ask you to put where. We'll need something more specific than the homepage. I don't think they're going to let you put it on the homepage unless it's a really important survey. Okay, security overview. In your own words, please describe any sensitive data you believe may be collected in your survey. I want social security numbers and bank account numbers. Be more robust than this. I am doing a demo, and all these you should be more robust and more well-rounded answers, describing what your security process will look like and what your agency leaders have told you. As far as the security goes, this is going to be very, very important. And then next, listen, understand, act. We're going to be asking questions just to ensure that we are being strategic about the survey. So what and how are you trying to capture the data? So I might put constituent data, CX data via a survey. Add more information here too. How do you plan to determine the why behind the data? I have a dashboard that looks at an analysis of Q1, Q2, etc. Right? So I'm going to add very specific information here. This will trigger a workflow that creates a ticket so that my team can respond to all negative feedback. So I might put how, like, do I have a filter in there? Do I have some sort of a decision task in there that only triggers a ticket if it's negative feedback? So what your act is going to be. Again, the reason for this is because we want to be strategic about this. All growing up, I've never been a big believer in busy work. And I can assure you this is not busy work. This is because we want to be strategic. The more strategic we are with the surveys, the more value you're going to get out of it. And the more the review team will be able to help you with different ideas like, hey, have you thought about setting up this API to automate this process? And so please be specific and very thorough in these answers. Jessica, do you have anything you want to add for listen,
Yeah,
understand, act?
I think I want to give a little more context in the why. Like I understand, like, right, I am totally against busy work. I am totally against that. But also put my hat on for a second. We're going to be looking for the rate of investment on this tool, this platform as well, right? Executive leadership is going to know, how did we improve efficiency, right? How did we make things better? You could say you created a survey, but then I'm going to have to go back and look at all that. Now, this is all about my busy work, but you also know, a lot of you are in the same predicament I am. You have to present reporting to executive leadership on what your particular product, your business unit is as well. This is really no different. This is just also things that you could take this exact concept and saying, hey, this is the report, this is what I'm doing, this is what's going to help your particular problem statement, and this is also how you're going to do it. So I'm not looking for, you're already going to have to present this to some degree to your leadership. I want to build this XYZ, and this is, I'm going to listen to them, I'm going to understand them, and I'm going to act. And you have that already written up more than likely when you present this concept, this idea. So I am far from anyone that wants to do double work, but I think you can kind of see big picture why this is important. Again, I'm trying to give you the why versus a have to. So if that makes sense as well. So just a little bit more in depth of the why. So you can keep going, Hunter. Thank you.
And like Jessica has said, and Natalie came up with this term, it's an evergreen process. I just thought of something just now. Maybe at the end of the survey, I can say, hey, send me these results so that you have that write-up saved to your email. So you have an email with it, so you're not doing double work in case you need to present this again. So yeah, we love feedback. That was my own feedback for myself, but this is the end of it. So I'll hit submit, and my answers are going to be coupled with that ticket data. So that survey that I just filled out is essentially supplementing it. Just another cool thing we can do with Qualtrics, we can make connections, we can connect a survey response to a ticket, we can connect it to a contact piece of contact data. There's a lot we can do in Qualtrics. So we wanted to show you the art of the possible. I think this approval process is a good example of something that you could do within Qualtrics. We used all of our own tools. What's the saying? We drink our own Kool-Aid. I don't think that's the saying I'm looking for, but we use our own product. So we're excited about this approval process. We think it's going to make it easier for everybody and make your surveys excellent. I think that's all I have on the approval process. Jessica, unless there's anything else you'd like me to cover, I might turn it over to either you or Jade at some point to talk about resources.
The only thing is that, like, once it's submitted and that's done, we will have open office hours, because again, our goal is never to hold it up. So if we've got a blocker, we're going back and forth, we're not quite understanding, we will have office hours twice a week. So you can just come in, ask your questions, get through those blockers. Like, what are we missing? How can we help you with X, Y, and Z? So again, support will be in place. And so that is that as well. And then I think that's, and then they would go then finally to the approver of the agency. And we'll talk more about that particular step next, but like that is another piece of the puzzle that, again, we're just the reviewers and making sure we got the infrastructure set up correctly to make sure we're compliant. And then last thing is then your agency will finally approve it. And we'll talk more about that next steps. So we're still doing pretty good on time. So I do think, speaking of support, I think Jade would be a good segue to kind of give how easy it is to find the resources. Like, I've been adding links right here and I'm just Googling these questions. And so I would like Jade to take a moment there, and then we'll leave it to close up with the next steps. And then we will try to address some of these questions that are unanswered on the chat, and then open it up to question and answer. So Jade, I will pass it on to you.
All right, sounds good. Nice to meet you all. My name is Jade Hill. I'm another technical success manager on this account. And as mentioned, I'm just going to talk about ways that you can find support as you start thinking about your process and working with Qualtrics, thinking about the kind of programs and projects that you'd like to create. There's a host of different ways, and some have been discussed on this call, but I'd like to show you ways that you can access support both for yourself and for our team. So let me believe this is the page I'm looking for. So can everybody see my screen here? All right. So
yes.
I'm in one. Great. Thank you so much. I'm in one of our accounts here, and I will actually go to the next page to show basically ground level one. Maybe you're in the platform, or you're Googling things in the platform. You're like, hey, Hunter did this really cool ticketing thing. How do I work with Qualtrics ticketing? So what I'll do is I will just go to another page. I'll share this tab, and I will go to ticketing Qualtrics. Just type it in. As he said, our team has worked very hard to give us different options where the first thing you type in is ticketing. So the first thing that pops up is a ticket task. That is our development page, our support page that basically walks you through step by step where ticketing is, how to set it up. And so our support pages are a fantastic resource in how to find directions and how to find what to do, not only about maybe what is this thing, but how do I build this thing? How do I set this thing up? Is this what I'm looking for, or do I need to look somewhere else, right? So that's a fantastic resource we have. And then if you look on the left-hand side, it also kind of dives down. So maybe ticket task wasn't exactly the information you were looking for, but you wanted to look into maybe updating a ticket task or ticket feedback surveys, or you wanted to look at, you were like, oh, I wanted to look at ticketing, but specifically within the dashboard. We have support pages basically for each of our systems, each of our products, and you're able to then basically just look those up by default. Another thing I wanted to mention is Hunter mentioned our community page. And so in addition to looking it up from our page itself, we have a Qualtrics community of users that have been in the platform for years and years, or maybe they're just starting out like you. And it's a great way to either get resources or to maybe suggest product updates or things that you're maybe noticing that aren't working in the platform the way that you suggest. And so we really recommend using our Qualtrics community as well, both for product requests and also for looking at that JavaScript. And sometimes our support internally doesn't work with custom code and things like that, and you may not have the resources to do that. But there are a host of people who have worked with Qualtrics, again, for years and have put their JavaScript codes into the community page. And so if you just type in community.qualtrics.com, here we have release notes as well. So if you want to see that things are being released, but if you just come to the Qualtrics community, that was the page. Let me go back. Community.qualtrics, I'll go back to the experience community page, and then you can see either the product form, so you can find answers, submit product ideas, or if you're a leader, then we have a leaders network as well. So if I go to the product form, I'll share this tab, and this will take me to our Qualtrics experience community products form. So you can learn about more of our products that we have coming out. This is just kind of a hub where you can find more information either by looking it up within this search tab, or you can say, you know, follow kind of our prompts here. One other thing I want to discuss is that we have a 24/7 support team. So as you're going through, they're really good with maybe you have an idea of you want to do something and you tried to look it up on Google, but the support page wasn't really, you weren't able to find what you're looking for. We are very good at that, but sometimes you just kind of have an idea and you don't know how to maybe accomplish it just by looking up specific parts of our platform. What you can do is once we get in to the platform, we have a 24/7 support page. So you can either Google that, or within the account, if we click on this little help icon here, we have, you know, these AI features. It also looks at support articles here. So it's looking and seeing that I'm on my home page. And so it's giving me support articles on the home page, or maybe I want to go into my product. But at the bottom here, we have our phone support. And so if you have questions on how to do X, or I'm trying to accomplish X thing, or maybe even something's broken, I don't think this is working correctly, you can contact our support page, our support team rather, and they will get back to you usually within 24 hours, or definitely within 24 hours, but usually within about like 5 to 15. So it'll take you to your account. I'll say I'm coming in as me, my session is expired, and I will actually stop sharing in order to sign in really quickly, just so that we keep everything consistent. But it's going to ask me to sign in just because that support team is for users of the platform. And then it will take me to this page. So I will share my screen again. and it's going to take me to our Get Technical Support. You'll see that it asks for the project area. So we have specialized support teams. So if you're just asking for survey direction or XM directory, which we didn't really go into a lot here, we have specialized support teams that have more details and information about our specific products. So maybe you had a lot more questions about maybe Stats IQ. That Hunter didn't go into in detail. You read the support pages, but you're like, hey, I'm trying to do X thing with Stats IQ. Can I do this? You can email our support team and they'll say, hey, yes, here are either some support pages or here's how you would do that. And they'll give you a little bit more of a robust answer than maybe what you were looking for. We also have maybe an integrations in our API. So again, maybe the support team is more specialized or trained in integrations and API information. And hey, I'm trying to connect to this platform or this system. Do we have that out of the box? Is there a best practice way to do that? You can email them that question and they can respond to that. But there's a host of different ways to basically get to the best answer possible. You can either go to the community page, you can Google it and say, I'm trying to do X in Qualtrics, and there may be either a community post already there, there may be a support page there. And if you're not finding what you're looking for just by looking things up, you can go to our support team. And as always, as you're starting this process, Hunter and I, and also Brooke, the Qualtrics team that you have at your disposal are also resources that you always have. And so as you're starting to think about your projects, as you're getting your understanding of what Qualtrics is, you're starting to Google more, maybe there's some YouTube videos or things like that, you have the ability to basically reach out to support.
Hey, well, we're still doing good at time. I have trained all my life and I don't think I've ever been on time. So there's always a first. All righty. Just going to talk about getting prepared. So anyway, what's next steps? How do you get prepared for the next level that we're taking this platform? So let's get prepared. First thing is to begin exploring the resources that Jade just talked about. So feel free to look at those resources just like she did, not inside the platform obviously yet, but Google it. You can see some of the resources that I've posted in here. Their help desk is very intuitive. Their support articles. We do already have some things within the DX training that will continue to grow. This will be very evergreen as we constantly will add more things, just like we did for the DX platform. As the more we learn, the more we can have chance to implement more resources. So go ahead and get familiar with the platform itself. And then the other thing that you could do is there's an additional resource that you will get as well is plan your project. Discover your business requirements that you need. Bring it to your leadership. There's a link here as well that will provide you benefits, tips, best practices as a free survey tool to get a better understanding of what the art of the possible is, right? I'm already can tell, like, just by the questions that we received, there's a lot of like, oh, we could maybe do this, maybe we could do that. So again, we want to do that. That is what we want you to do. We want you to be excited about the platform and what it could do to improve efficiency and help out our state of Iowa constituents. Again, I cannot emphasize enough, like, I want you to make sure you obtain your own internal intake process. So again, agency B, C, D, and E, please get that process going. If you have an idea, you have a concept, an idea with what you saw today, how you can listen, understand, and act, and how you could close loop, how you can have a dashboard for executive leadership. You've already got a vision in your head. Start getting that documented and do your own internal intake process if that applies to you. Again, I don't know everybody's agency. I know there's some, and I am not stepping over any of those. So please make sure you continue to do that as well. And that will get you ready to go when we go fully live. Next steps for CX and DX. Early next week, you will get a follow-up email from GovDelivery. I do want to point out with GovDelivery, this group alone is getting too big to send through Outlook. We will be using GovDelivery. I do know there was 11 people that maybe didn't get the agenda because you suppressed your account. You will get a separate email to me to sign up for that topic. So do look for those GovDelivery messages as a good problem to have, getting too big to send through Outlook. So we'll use our GovDelivery to send out those messages. You'll get a copy of this PDF or this slide deck in a PDF format. As I said, we're going to polish up the videos and make sure we get a good streamline there, and any additional resources and a lot of the follow-up questions that we might not be able to address today and talk internally. So we'll I do not like leaving a question unanswered. So you will get your questions answered if we don't answer them today to the best of my ability. So please make sure you get that email from GovDelivery. The other thing that will take place in the month of September is DOM leadership will send an email to all directors and deputy directors. That's how most of you got invited to this particular meeting. We will be asking for a designated agency approver. Again, we're not the approvers, we're the reviewers. So we will need a particular person to do that final sign off of that survey. So it might be multiple. It might be at the bureau or the department level. That's up to you, your agency. But we need that information. So we don't want to assume, we don't want to guess, we need clear direction. And that's something very common in other instances, to have a true designated approver at other platforms and things. So we need the same thing here at Qualtrics. So with that, the next thing is in September and October, our goal is to button up, as a good friend of mine always says, we need to button up the DX launch. We had a very successful last Friday. I think I did a happy dance launching the 33 websites, 7 more to go on September 5th. That was a huge win. This is it's close to my heart for being the DX former program manager and seeing this finally come through. But we need to get the dashboards ready and need to go there. So I want to give you some, again, that transparency and that visibility. You have a good digital footprint. I do want to point out, if you purchased like Crazy Egg or Hotjar or any of those other tools, it would have cost you an arm and a leg. I know this is just another benefit of using Qualtrics, and you're going to get more with Qualtrics with all the stuff that you have access to with the engaged surveys, the digital side of things, and now future in the CX. So I'm excited to give you that peace of mind that we'll continue finishing up that project and go from there. The other thing is our goal is to have a large scale of Qualtrics CX, which is the survey building and et cetera, through in October. I don't want to give you an exact date. I'm honest and transparent. So we are working, our goal is in October. Again, we need to button up a few more things on the back end. This presentation was huge, not only for you to guys get an idea of what you can do with Qualtrics, but it also gives me things that we need to kind of fine tune before we go full scale CX. So this is very beneficial on our part, and we will act on these things. So this is really a good starting point. More than a starting point, we're much further than you think we are. Qualtrics will say this, that we have gone much faster than most states or other big institutions. So I just wanted to kind of let you guys know that as well. So that is the next steps. More to come, obviously. You do have your next steps to start thinking with what you want to do within the platform, and start thinking of the art of the possibility. So